What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now I'm just getting caught up. I covered Ward versus Brand live in my backyard, Oakland, California. Shout out to the 510. Want to do my post-fight review on this particular fight. A lot of people hit me up and ask me, you guys have to stay patient because I'm one person, you know what I mean? And covering the fights live, you try to get everything you can get. You know what I mean? Sometimes there's no Wi-Fi, all kinds of stuff. It's just a lot of running around. I appreciate everybody that has donated to the cause. This helps me facilitate other bodies and stuff, so I can get more and more people on the Boxingego movement. Just a lot of things coming, so thanks, shout out. And on my post fights, as you guys know, I give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. As you can see from the videos playing in this Snapchat that I shot, I was extremely close. I feel like I was able to interpret and understand everything that was going on in this fight. I was talked to Ward after, went to the post fight. So I'm going to break it down, give my thoughts. There's a lot of different things that people are saying. I want to give you guys my take, new media style. Now, I thought Ward looked sharp. He looked good. It was definitely a dominant win. Forgive me, I don't have all the rounds memorized. It's a different experience. Let me tell you guys this. It's a different experience covering the fights or being at the fights live as a fan, press row, whatever you're doing, but being at the fights live. Sometimes you can get swayed by the crowd. Sometimes you can get swayed by your neighbor, things of that sort. So I encourage all the boxing fans. There's a lot of boxing fans that have never seen a fight. You know what I mean? My brother is a huge boxing fan, and he went to the Ward versus Chad Dawson, Shane Mosley, Antonio Margarito. He's been to some classics, you know what I mean? So it's different than watching it on TV and stuff, commentator. So I don't know what HBO said. A lot of people are tweeting me and hitting me up, asking me to comment. I was at the fight live. They don't tell you the HBO commentary as you're sitting there. So I don't know what they were said, but from what it sounds like there were some biased remarks or just some hating going on and stuff like that. I'd have to wait, so I can't really speak on that because I wasn't there for that and I didn't hear it. But I encourage everyone to go to the fights live. There's a lot of hoopla about what this fight was and what it wasn't. And for me, I thought Ward looked sharp. I thought he looked good. To me, his reaction time and his reflexes looked a bit better than he did. I covered the Sullivan-Barrera fight live. He didn't look bad versus Barrera, but that year layoff where he fought Paul Smith and then he didn't fight for about a year and he just fought in March, he looked a tad bit slower. I don't know if it was maybe moving up in the weight, but he looked more acclimated. He looked more precise, like he could do what he wanted to do with the guy who was very herky-jerky and tricky. Now, this is the thing with boxing, and it's getting to the point where I'm not saying I'm the only one that knows anything about boxing, but I do know my shit, right? And it's getting to the point I can't really talk boxing with a lot of people. So if you see me comment less and less, then you'll know why. Because I'm not all this dumb shit. They try to lure you in and, oh, this was the worst fight of the year and this was horrible. And a lot of these people have never had a scrap in their life. They're not around the environment. They don't talk to boxers. Like a lot of these people are 400 pounds and whatnot, and they're trying to critique and talk about boxing. And the only box you know is a pizza box. You know what I mean? Because you're fat, you're not even athletic, you're not even in shape, right? And you want to critique what was boring. And like I've been to plenty of these fights at this point, and I get to see it. There's a lot of reporters who really don't know much, and it's surprising that they're writers. Now they know stuff in the sense of they know who's involved, they know the names, the players, the faces, things like that. They could tell you, oh, this person fought in Montreal, or you know what I mean, things like that. But they don't know boxing. They can't break down boxing. And if it was like let's say HBO, Showtime got together, put up some money, I would chew them in like a decathlon. You know what I mean? If I got a team of people I know and we debated boxing versus them, like, so you explain why Rigondeaux's boring or why this is the worst fight that you've ever seen, right? You know what I mean? Ward versus Brand or anything like that. So aside from that, I didn't think the fight was as terrible as people were saying. I don't think it was the most thrilling performance like for Brand, and that's really what it is. And this is what happens in boxing. You're not going to, every fight is not going to be Mike Alvarado versus Brandon Rios. I wasn't bored. Maybe it's because I was the third row back and I'm just watching the fight live or whatever, but I wasn't bored. Because I break down the science. In every fight there's something to take away, whether someone's a hell of an offensive fighter or a machine and just keeps plowing forward. I look at what they're doing and how they're getting their offense off, or the body shots, things like that. Or if there's a technical fighter like a Floyd Mayweather, a guy who has technique and finesse like an Andre Ward Rigondeaux, I'm like, what is he doing? And to me, that is very intriguing to see how he's staying out of trouble, and like shots will be whizzing by that person and they're still able to evade them, you know what I mean, where other people might get caught or lured in, or why they take a half step back. I look at all that and I try to dissect it, and what Ward was doing was a masterpiece. Like, it's phenomenal. His defense is still there at light heavyweight. He was moving. He did some fancy footwork in one of the rounds, and this is the thing, every fight is not going to be a scintillating like knockout fest and knockdowns. In fact, the biggest thing is a lot of people didn't know who Alexander Brand was, including me. Like, I had to do my research. Sometimes when you hear a name, and the problem with boxing is people don't respect the craft anymore. You know what I mean? They don't respect that. They just, oh, I never heard of this guy, he's a bum. Like, you know what I'm saying? People probably said that about Granados. Like, who the fuck is Granados? You know what I mean? And then he just beat Amir Imam. People said that with Joe Smith Jr., and then he just knocked out the much taller favorite with a high Polish community when they fought in Chicago, Andrzej Fanfara. So the level of disrespect and the level of novice with a lot of the fans is just unbelievable. Because you've never heard of a guy, you think that he has to get knocked out immediately. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, Triple G knocked out Dominic Wade. Triple G has an aggressive style. Plus, most people hadn't heard of Dominic Wade. You know what I'm saying? So making comparisons like that. And it's funny because I was post-fight talking to Sergey Kovalev. We were just doing like a roundtable style interview, and it looks like this one guy next to me, they're trying to bait him. Like, what do you think of this fight, Kovalev? Was it boring? The video's up. You guys can check it out. Was it boring? And he was like, oh, the first rounds were boring. It started off slow, but then it got interesting and intriguing. Then another guy was like, hey, Kovalev, what about the fact that no one knows Brand and he's a super middleweight, things of that sort, and he didn't get the knockout? And Kovalev says, my last fight with Zalimba, it went 12 rounds. And he was basically saying, like, you can't knock everybody out. So while they're trying to bait Kovalev into saying some, like, decaf stupid point, he's respecting the sport of boxing. And he's a knockout artist. He's the crusher, right? I must break you. Like, you know what I mean? That's his style. And he's even giving respect to it. So again, you're not going to knock out everybody. So saying this was the worst fight in the millennium and all that, that just sounds stupid, because I remember offensive fighters who have had this same type of rut, right? See, this is how we separate the men from the boys, because I can give you examples off the top of the dome. For example, Nonito Donaire. There's really nobody out there that says he has a boring style, right? He's from Northern California. I met him, cool dude, real cool dude. And I'm a huge fan of Nonito Donaire. So when he fought the Japanese guy, Tashioka or whatever, that was on the Mike Alvarado, Brandon Rios card. And that fight was very slow. And the reason being is the Japanese guy was a veteran. He was doing enough to not get knocked down or knocked out early, and he wasn't committing to anything. Very similar to Alexander Brand versus Andre Ward. And that's what happens. You get guys who are like that. They're kind of herky-jerky. Another example from a exciting fighter, Nonito Donaire, is when he fought Omar Narvaez. Narvaez is an Olympian. He was pretty tight defense, but he wasn't doing anything to win the rounds, and Donaire was pressing and tried to press the fight. And again, it was a similar fight to Andre Ward versus Alexander Brand, whereas you have a guy who's pushing forward. You can't say Ward was running in the fight, because I was there 3 rows back. He wasn't running. He was coming forward and still maintaining his defense. And you had a guy who is a Colombian. Sometimes there's a lot of Colombian punchers that I can think of, like the Bradis Prescotts of the world. Probably packed a solid, decent punch, and he's just really wild. He was so wild he knocked himself down, which is really weird. I never really seen that, or I don't remember. I've seen Tyson Fury punch himself in the face, but I never seen someone swing so wild where they knocked themselves down from the momentum. So, I mean, you got to watch out for a guy like that. And if you know shit about boxing, you know this, right? There are guys, to me, the guy's style reminded me of a couple of different people. Off the top of my head, Marcos Maidana, like an unpolished Maidana, like maybe a step down from Maidana before he got with Robert Garcia, because when he got with Roberto Garcia and Oxnard, I think he stepped up his game and mainly his jab. and he would set things up a bit better to land his combinations. But he reminded me of a mix between like a Maidana, just awkward, unorthodox type of punches coming from weird angles. I had a very clear view, and Brand was throwing from like the waist. He was trying to land some real sneaky, kind of weird, crazy uppercuts, and he was trying to play the counter puncher. And I was surprised by that, because again, I didn't know much about, I knew about the Badou Jack fight, but I'll be frank, I haven't studied a bunch of Alexander Brand fights. You know what I mean? They're not really readily available. And the thing is, he was just throwing weird, and I was wondering why he was playing. I thought he was like more of a come forward fighter, but it was apparent that he was trying to bait Ward in. He was like, it's kind of like the opposite of Victor Postol, Terrence Crawford, where Terrence Crawford was playing the boxer and Victor Postol was coming forward. You had Andre Ward, who was doing pretty much all the coming forward, and you had a less technical guy than a Terrence Crawford, who was wild, who was trying to bait him in and land some kind of KO shot or home run punch or something that changed the fight. He knew he can't outbox him, so I guess he was trying to play counterpuncher. And I also found out that this guy has 430 plus amateur fights, so, and he's 40 years old, so that's what happens sometimes. You get a Narvaez with Olympic background, Donaire's not going to look the same, because you know what I mean, you don't want to do something reckless. And Donaire is an offensive monster, right? Especially at that time, knocking everybody else out, right? You have a Brand who's 40 years old, who's not trying to get knocked out, but really not doing anything enough to push the action and push the fight. This is what's going to happen. So to me, with everything said and done, and Brand's weird style, herky-jerky, like I said, let me continue with the comparison. His style was like an unpolished Maidana mixed with like a Vic Darchinyan mixed with Ricardo Mayorga. That's really what I seen type of style, like just really weird. Like you look at Ricardo Mayorga, I think Shane Mosley knocked him out in the 12th round, and Shane Mosley's an offensive monster. If I'm not mistaken, you guys can box rec and tell me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, he didn't get the knockout till the 12th round, and Shane Mosley got cracks. He stopped Antonio Margarito. It's just Mayorga, he's wild. You got to watch out for that wild, crazy man shit. You know what I'm saying? Their head's not going to be where you expect it to be. They're trying to bait you and then land some sneaky home run uppercut or something stupid. And Ward knows what's on the line. This was the prequel to Sergey Kovalev Ward Kovalev, right? In Vegas in November. So he's not trying to have no mishaps, because when you're a fighter like a Ward, a Floyd Mayweather, Guillermo Rigondeaux, they're looking for any excuse to take you down a notch. The good is Ward, even with this style, even a guy that had a split decision with the current champion Badou Jack, he still made it look easy. It just wasn't as exciting, because the guy wasn't, he was like running and moving and trying to do this herky jerky and then try to explode with random wild man tactics and stuff like that. So it's a hard fight to lock down and to look super impressive, to be honest. And Ward still looked impressive in doing it. He looked like his I don't know, if the guy was more fundamental, like a Paul Smith, more of a straight up and down type of dude, it would have been another Paul Smith situation. But that's what happens when you get a tough guy who's kind of doing that and just kind of gamey, real cagey and stuff like that. So I thought Ward looked good. I thought he did what he had to do given that particular style. And if that person would have been someone like, let's say it was like a Joe Smith Jr. I mean, I think the Ward that showed up would have chopped somebody like that up. Marcus Brown or somebody like that, who's just more of a conventional style, because they would have been there to hit a lot more. And I don't think the size differential would be as, you got to take all this into consideration. The Alexander Brand was shorter, a lot shorter than Ward, so he's kind of squirrely. It looked like he had good movement, like he was just like fidgety, you know what I mean? And that's what happens. And he had that Maidana / Darchinyan / Mayorga type of weird style, you know what I'm saying? And again, Ward knew what was up for grabs and what was at stake. And when you're at that class, you already get hate for no reason. You don't want to make stupid, silly mistakes and get knocked down or get rocked, because they'll be like, ha ha, a bum rocked you. So props to Andre Ward. I celebrate guys like Floyd Mayweather or Ward for having the wherewithal to not get lured into some stupid shit, because that's what fans want more. You know what I mean? You look at this fight and they're saying, oh, haha, Ward, that was boring, 12 rounds of boredom, haha. But imagine what they would have said if this quote-unquote cherry pick, which they were saying before the fight, actually knocked him down. or rocked him even. They'd be like, ha ha, you're getting rocked by a super middleweight. Crusher Kovalev's gonna kill you. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to them dudes, Ward, Rigondeaux, and Floyd and all them dudes, man, because they could stick to a game plan, whether the crowd boos, whether they do what's right for the fight. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, it would be far more embarrassing. This guy who's much smaller, a lot lesser known, got this small purse, 30,000, and he would have knocked Ward down because Ward tried to do some stupid shit and underestimate him or like try to chump him. You know what I mean? So Ward did what he had to do, and I've never really seen this in boxing where you can have fighters who pitch shutouts and there's still major complaints. You know what I mean? People, that's the thing. A lot of people, most motherfuckers don't know shit about boxing, and that's word to the Black Mamba himself, Roger Mayweather. They don't account for anything. They don't account for a guy's amateur experience unless they want to. Then they'll account for it, like Gennady Golovkin. Everybody loves Golovkin, so they'll talk about his amateur experience. They don't talk about Alexander Brand. And again, some guys are gamey. You're not going to knock everybody out. And this is the other thing. Alexander Brand, I interviewed him. I asked him myself. He said he fought at 175 before his last fight. And how did he feel about taking this fight, normally being at super middleweight, taking the fight at 175? Is weight an issue? Any hesitations there?
¿Cómo te sientes haber agarrado la pelea en 175?
Bueno, bien, ya hemos peleado en 175, en esta categoría peleé en amateur también, entonces pienso que no hay ningún inconveniente. Y peleamos ahora con un invicto ruso en diciembre cuando André se lesionó. Y bueno, se nos dieron las cosas también y estamos preparados para pelear en cualquier peso y con cualquiera.
Says that it's nothing new for him. I mean, he fought at 175, you know, in the amateurs. His last fight in December was at 175. He fought this undefeated Russian when Andrew Ward got hurt.
Okay.
So he has no difficulty. He comes to fight.
So everyone's talking about how small he is or whatever. So it's a guy who has had experience at that weight. Like he's not just like he just fought at 168 or 160. You know what I mean? And the thing is, look at Kell Brook in Triple G. Kell Brook's a hell of a fighter. He's a champion. I'm not comparing Brand and Kell Brook pedigree-wise, but that's still a guy who's going up 2 divisions to face a guy who's knocking out full-fledged middleweights who have been at that division, and 54-pounders like Gabe Rosado and Ishida who moved up. You know what I mean? Who had the frame to move up, but they hadn't had the experience at 160. And then we're getting a welterweight. So, I mean, you got to take all that type of stuff into consideration. This guy, Brand, he was cagey, gamey, and it's a certain style is not going to look good. If there was a guy who was more textbook, then I think you probably would have seen, like if it was an Edwin Rodriguez type of fighter, you would have seen Ward that was more dazzling or whatever people expected. But I thought Ward looked good. I thought he looked good. The 1-2 was there. He's just his left hook, his 1-2, his footwork, his defense. And again, I'll put this clip at the end. I just talked to my dude Troy King. Shout out to Cuerno de Chivo, and he said it. He said those unorthodox, rugged guys are the hardest styles to tame, and we've seen it time and time again. You look at Leo Santa Cruz versus a guy like Carl Frampton, much smaller, just like Brand was. I'm not comparing Frampton skill set to a Brand or saying they're the same fighter, but what I am saying is he's squirrely, he can move, and you had the taller fighter who was abandoning his jab, and he didn't, you know what I mean? Leo Santa Cruz never even really rocked Carl Frampton badly. You look at Porter versus Thurman. Porter clearly lacks more technical ability than Keith one-time Thurman, but that was a very competitive fight because Sean Porter's in stupid condition. He's ready. He has respectable power that you can't look over, and he's in your face. He's in your chest for 12 rounds. So styles make fights. Again, if Ward was in there with an Edwin Rodriguez or whoever else who's just more straight up and down, and you know what I mean, it probably would have been a different outcome, or the outcome people would have expected. But I mean, I expected this. Actually, the thing that was unexpected is I give Brand credit. I didn't know he was tough. I thought he would probably get knocked out, but he knows how to survive. And you got to look at it like this. And the fight that it really reminds me of is like a Donaire versus Omar Narvaez. The guy, I don't know what they said in the telecast, but the guy in the fight, Narvaez and Alexander Brand, have to clearly know that they're losing the fight and they need something huge to win it, and they're not doing anything. So if Brand start coming forward on Ward and then Ward can turn to counter puncher, then that probably would have been he probably would have got sliced up even more. But you got a lot of guys who they want to look like, they give the appearance of they're going out like true warriors, like, yeah, I'm pushing the fight, but they're not. Brand wasn't doing anything. It was very clear very soon that he needed something big to turn the fight around, and he really wasn't doing that. He was just doing some wild stuff and trying to bait him on the ropes, and Ward wasn't biting it, and that's the fight we got because of that. You know what I mean? Same thing with Victor Postal versus Terrence Crawford. Victor Postal needed something big, at least a knockdown. I would have had him towards the later rounds. He needed a knockout to win, and he wasn't going for that. He wasn't just like, man, I'm John Molina Jr., fuck this. Like John Molina Jr. he's known for that, pulling that last minute upset versus Mickey Bay and stuff like that, because he is living up to his nickname, the Gladiator. He's gonna go out on his shield, just like he did with Lucas Matisse. He came up on the short end of that stick, and I know John Molina Jr., he'd be checking out my Snapchat, shout out to my dude, the Gladiator, John Molina Jr., but he's willing to do that. If other fighters like Postal and Brand, when they're clearly losing, are willing to do that, then you'll probably see him get sliced up even more, because with them kind of, it's like I'm trying to think of an example. It's like fighters are doing enough to save face and they're content going the distance. Like, I know I'm losing and I'm not willing to do enough to get embarrassed or potentially get embarrassed to really push for this win. You know what I'm saying? So it's a way to save face, and it's a way to kind of disguise as if you're really trying to win the fight. But to me, fighters like that and performances like that, they show me that they're more content just surviving and not getting knocked down or not getting knocked out, instead of going out like James Kirkland or John Molina. You know what I mean? And that's why some of those fights they've lost those. Like, you know what I mean? Kirkland did it with Angulo and it was successful, but he did it against a more boxer puncher in Canelo and he wasn't successful. But he never changed his DNA. He was willing to go out on his shield like he always is. You know what I mean? Same with John Molina. It worked versus Mickey Bay, but it didn't work when he fought against Lucas Matisse. You know what I mean? Guy with cracks and stuff. But he's not changing who he is, his DNA, his makeup as a fighter. But I think there's a lot of fighters who do that. So Brand, he was tough, he was durable, more durable than I thought. But Ward did what he did, and I'm impressed by little stuff. And I think Kovalev, it's not an easy fight for Ward, but Kovalev has his hands full. Like, I just think that Ward is sharper. The ability to switch to southpaw. See, that's how I know who knows boxing. Some people probably never even knew until someone said it that Ward switched to southpaw, because you don't even know what the hell you're looking for. You thought southpaw was a Jake Gyllenhaal movie, right? So that's random, and I don't know this for a fact. This is just my personal take. So if Ward, if you ever see this video or anyone on your team, don't be mad at me. This is my thing. I think he may have been influenced by Terrence Crawford's recent performance, because I talked to him at his media day and I said, what do you think of Crawford's performance? And he's like, man, the kid's bad. I like Crawford a lot. He's a beast. He came out southpaw and he stayed like that. And he was like, I didn't expect him to stay like southpaw 12 rounds. And then post fight, after the Brand fight, Ward said that he went southpaw and he used to do that a lot more. So I think he was kind of inspired by, like, you know what, this guy's herky jerky, let me give him a different look. And then he switched to southpaw, right, with his American style, you know. So let me know what you guys think. That is my full breakdown of the fight, and bring on Kovalev. That's a great fight. The winner of that fight, whether it's Kovalev or Ward, without a doubt, no excuses. This is not no Mayweather Pacquiao, like, oh, shoulder, Kovalev shoulder, Ward shoulder. Nope. Fair fight. If the fighters are injured, postpone it. You know what I mean? There are no excuses after that, and then the person is the _1 pound for pound fighter, and that can't be disputed. No Chocolatito, no Golovkin. Those are great fighters, but you can't prioritize them. After November, there's no way you could put Chocolatito you know what I'm saying? Okay, if Kovalev beats Ward, who just won the Super 6, who's undefeated, and all the accomplishments, the Carl Froch, Edwin Rodriguez, Kovalev's mandatory, Sullivan Barrera, you cannot say Chocolatito is better than Kovalev. I mean, or is pound for pound ranked higher, because how could you? Who's Chocolatito beat? He beat Estrada, who already had a loss, and that fight was disputed, and he had lost a year before Chocolatito fought him. He had a game fight, competitive fight with Valoria I was at his last fight with Wade on the Triple G Wade card. I don't think he looks spectacular. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense. Same thing with Ward. If Ward beats Kovalev, who's running through legends, like shutting out Bernard Hopkins and beating Pascal in his backyard, beating Cleverly in his backyard, and Ward beats him, no. I mean, you can't. Combined, that win will solidify their already great resumes. Let me know what you guys think. Ward versus Kovalev. I'm getting excited. Hope you guys are excited. That is my breakdown of Ward versus Brand. Like, subscribe. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.
Speaking of fighters that want to fight, Brand took it. Do you think people underestimate him? He beat a Russian he wasn't supposed to beat supposedly in December, and his only loss was to New Jack. I was at the fight. A lot of people thought he actually won that fight.
Yeah, no, he's thing is, he wasn't the top of our list. There was a lot of, not a lot. It was 2 or 3 guys that we had above him that were, probably the media would say is more accomplished and more of a threat. But he's a difficult guy to fight. He's very awkward. He's throwing punches from every angle. But we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out. We got to figure it out, and I plan on doing it. I prepared myself. It's probably gonna take a few rounds to slow him down and tame him, because again, he's gonna be coming from every angle. He's just awkward. So I gotta stay disciplined and locked in. But I'm gonna continue to have fun while I'm doing it. And I think we're gonna be fine.
Does that awkwardness make him more dangerous than maybe a typical fighter?
I mean, it's just different. I don't know if he's more dangerous. Just different. Just a different set of challenges. But again, I've always wanted to be a fighter that makes the adjustments. It's a challenge. Like when I look at him, like, okay, this dude is not straight up. He's a little shorter than me. He's swinging from every angle. You think he's going down. He's coming back with a haymaker. You got to find an answer. You got to find an answer. And we plan on doing that on Saturday. It's funny because veterans, man, you got to be careful with veterans, because one minute they talk down about you and the next minute they want to praise you and say you're the greatest. We're not falling for that. We're not falling for that. We're focused and we're locked in and we're ready for war Saturday.
He's gonna fuck him up, but he gonna break him down, because dude kind of wild, and I'm trying to tell you from experience of being in the ring and currently a boxer right now, awkward fighters are the hardest to box.
Like the Maidanas of the world?
Yeah, like awkward motherfuckers throwing wild punches, that shit awkward, because their head don't be where you expect it to be when you fight somebody sharp.
You don't feel it, then it must be too real to touch. You'll never in your life try to knock the truth. The illest shit ever. Get ready, cause this is about to get heavy. Trying to keep me out, trying to censor what I say, cause they don't like what I'm talking about. So what's wrong with the media today?
Prove I'm lying if I ain't correct.